Entity Relationships Diagram. Lessons 1.1 Entity, Attribute, and Relationships. In this lesson, the terms related to Entity Relationship Model and Entity Relationship Diagram will be explained. And the term Entity, Attribute, Primary Key, Foreign Key, and Relationship will be defined also. The reasons why we draw a ER diagram before designing the database is because ER model is useful for designing database. ER model can be represented and described in detail by ER diagram. ER model is useful for designing database. To beginner, it is easy to learn how to design and implement the database. That's because there will be not involved just the operation, saving method, and other related complicated computer operation. We can use ER model to construct database. ER model includes EAR. E stands for entities, A stands for attributes, and R stands for relationships. The content of ER diagram is constructed by different symbols and different notations. Entity is represented by rectangle, and weak entity is represented by a double-sided rectangle. Attribute is represented by circles, while multi-volume attribute is represented by double-sided circle. Relationship is indicated by a diamond, while weak relationship is indicated by a double-sided diamond. Entity will be identified first. Entity is a basic unit in ER diagram. It's mapped from object and the real world. Entity can be a person, place, event, or object. Entity is represented by rectangle. For example, when phone is the entity, the object or data instance should be Samsung, iPhone, Sony, and other brand of phone. Then attributes will be identified. Attribute is a property, trait, or characteristic of an entity, relationship, or another attribute. Attribute is represented by a circle. In general, attributes should be single-volumed. For example, name is the attribute of the entity customer. Attribute can be composite. Attributes can also have their own specific attributes. In this example, number, street, and city are the attributes of the attribute address, and address is the attribute of the entity customer. For example, a customer is able to own an attribute telephone. At the same time, telephone can contain many phone numbers, which means both 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 can also be the phone number of salesman. When sorted in ER diagram, phone is the multi-valued attribute of customer. Therefore, the symbol for phone should be a double-sided circle. Key attribute is the unique distinguishing characteristic of the entity, which called it primary key. For example, Hong Kong ID and student ID can be the primary key of the entity. When sorted in ER diagram, the key attributes should be sorted by underline. Primary key and unique key are different things. Primary key cannot annul null, while unique key can annul null. Each table can have only one primary key, but each table can have multiple unique keys. Foreign key is a field in one table that uniquely identifies a row of another table. For example, the table for the order foreign key is a thing is one table that uniquely identifies a row of another table. For example, in the table which recording the detail of the order, the ID of the customer is the foreign key of this table. Which entity depends on the existing of another entity. It cannot be identified by its own attributes. It is identified by a compound key consisting of order number, which is a foreign key, and port number, which is a foreign key also. Next relationship will be identified. An example will be used for identifying relationships. The customers buy phones. We can use the EL diagram to represent the relationship between customer and product. We can first identify the entity from the sentence first. Customer should be the entity. We draw the EL diagram entity customer, and phone is also the entity. The customers buy phones. The relationship buy should be sorted in diamonds in EL diagram. A more complicated example for identifying relationship. This is for stating the number of products the customer bought. How to represent the number of products do the customer bought? We can use attribute to state the number of products they bought. Let's name the attributes as quality. The EL diagram should be shown as this. We will illustrate a more complicated example again to state the customer identity and product. In more complicated case, the customer identity and product code can be stated by using attribute. For simplicity, we use customer ID and product code to identify the product. Customer ID and product code are unique to identify. As customer ID and product code are the attribute, they will shown circle in the EL diagram. We then put the attribute to the suitable entity. The rest can be done in the same manner. For the sentence, library owns books. Library and books are the entities, and owns should be the relationship connecting these two entities. Even the statement is longer, we can do in the same way. In this sentence, we can find that library and books are the two entities, and the relationship between these two entities is own. We can then draw a more realistic EL diagram. This is the receipt for customer after they bought some item, and it contains many information. From the receipt, we can identify the entity as follows. They include product, customer, order, and order item. We can use this entity for drawing EL diagram, and we can identify the attributes from the receipt. They including product number, which is the key attribute and should be underlined, product type, product description, and product price. The attributes for the entity customer should be customer number, which is the key attribute, customer name, and customer address. The attributes for order should include order number, which is the key attribute, order date, order shipping address, and order payment information. The attributes for order item should include quantity, discount, price, and special options. Finally, the EL diagram should be drawn as this. That's the end of the lesson.